Hello and welcome to Reporters, the best of France 24 reporting from around the world. Today we give you a rare glimpse inside Uzbekistan, a country off limits to foreign journalists, which has all but eradicated a free press. This is an important moment for Uzbekistan, its first presidential elections in a quarter of a century without long-term leader Islam Karimov, who died earlier this year. His successor is widely expected to continue in his footsteps. But 25 years after Uzbekistan officially gained independence from the Soviet Union, what is life like for the Uzbek people? What legacy has Islam Karimov left? And are his moves to open up to the West having any effects on the country's abysmal human rights record? France 24's Moscow correspondent Elena Volochine travelled to Uzbekistan. This is what she found.
Samarkand, a city on the Silk Road seized by conquerors throughout the centuries. It's here, in the former capital of the Tamerlan Empire, that our journey begins. The founder of the Timurid dynasty lies in this mausoleum. But today, pilgrims are gathering around a different tomb, the tomb of Karim Bobo, as he's known here. Grandfather Karim.
We cried for 3 days after he died. My son cried too. While he was crying, he told me, let's go to see Karim Bobo. That's why I brought them along.
No other country has developed as much in 25 years. No other man has been such a president, such a king over 25 years.
Our first president, our first father.
Islam Karimov, Uzbekistan's leader who died this autumn. A product of the Soviet state apparatus, he nurtured a personality cult over a quarter of a century and ruled his country with an iron fist. A large number of police guard his tomb. Filming is strictly prohibited. We've got a hidden camera with us and keep the other camera rolling. Once a short prayer is finished, the policeman urges the weeping pilgrims to leave the area. We try to stay, but an agent quickly becomes suspicious. He takes our camera and tries to delete the images. Foreign journalists aren't welcome in Uzbekistan. We had to pose as tourists to be able to film this report. That's not hard in Samarkand. It's one of the main attractions for the 2 million tourists who visit Uzbekistan every year.
Ils aiment bien être pris en photo avec les Occidentaux. Souris, Daniel, souris.
Maintenant, c'est à vous. Don't go. À l'image que nous avons de l'Ouzbékistan.
I really wonder about the image we have of Uzbekistan in France. I'm just not sure what I should think anymore. I mean, do we understand it through a misleading Western filter? I'm really asking myself that question. The Uzbeks seem happy, in any case.
Where's the dictatorship?
Yes, we arrived here with that story of dictatorship in our minds, but we haven't felt it.
Islam Karimov launched many construction projects to improve his country's image and attract more tourists and investors. For years now, the Uzbek government has been restoring and even rebuilding its monuments. Like any tourist, we hire a guide. He explains this necropolis from the 14th and 15th centuries has been refurbished, almost from the ground up.
These mausoleums were half destroyed. In 2004, at the initiative of our respected president, the Council of Ministers issued a decree ordering comprehensive restoration works to be carried out over 2 years on all the Shohi Zinda mausoleums. These domes too were in ruins. We restored everything, from the mosaics to the terracotta cupolas.
The old city is changing bit by bit, day by day. And in these suburbs to the north, a new city is appearing. With GDP growth at a blistering 8% per year, Uzbekistan is one of the fastest developing economies in the world. That development is hard to miss. On this 5-kilometre stretch of road, government-paid companies will have built whole new suburbs here in 2 years' time.
All our city is being rebuilt, all of it. We're tearing down the wooden huts and old buildings from the 60s. The Council of Ministers and the President of Uzbekistan decreed that here there will be a tram line to link the old city, the more recently built area, and the new city.
Just like all the Uzbeks we meet, these workers have nothing but compliments for the former president when speaking to foreigners.
Everything is done for the people.
Yes, it'll be beautiful, comfortable, spacious.
But with the camera to one side, the supervisor reveals more.
These workers are from a colony where prisoners are on day parole. You mustn't film them. They have a guard. They do different types of work.
It was impossible to find out more about these prisoners, who were being watched closely by security. But in Uzbekistan, they aren't the only ones used as forced labour. At the University of Samarkand, students should be back in classes by mid-October. Yet the corridors are empty. On the main entrance, there's a poster for the coming presidential election. We come across these teachers outside.
Where are the students? We can't see anyone.
In the cotton fields. They went there on the 16th of September. We just came from a meeting about that.
The students, the teachers, all the civil servants bring in the cotton. There's a large field not far away. They get everyone together here, then buses arrive to take them.
Uzbekistan is the world's second largest exporter of cotton. Last year, it produced 3,350,000 tonnes. That level of production has been achieved since the Soviet era because of a mass, seasonal mobilization of workers. The NGO Human Rights Watch says more than 1 million Uzbeks are sent into the fields each year for 2 months in the autumn. Uktam Pardayev was taken to court because he criticized this practice.
That's the local branch of the Interior Ministry. They detained me here for nearly 2 months while they carried out their investigation.
He's been out on parole since then.
If you bring up the subject of cotton in the public sphere, they label you as an enemy of the people straight away.
It's a sensitive topic for the Uzbek authorities. Uktam contacted an acquaintance so we could film in a cotton field.
Hi, how are you? This way.
This man supervises the harvest. He has to write in his notebook the amount of cotton gathered by each of his workers.
These are villagers. They pick 70 kilos per day. They receive 260 sums per kilo, 1 litre of butter and 1 kilo of fodder.
Do people ever say, that's enough, we're not going to pick any more cotton?
No, that never happens. They're all here of their own free will.
We don't argue the point. The supervisor is already taking a large risk by letting us be here. The farmer and owner of this field has to fulfill production quotas imposed by the state. But here, the workers stick to the same line.
They say to us, let's go and bring in Uzbekistan's cotton, and we do it. We have to finish before the rainy season. We want to make our contribution for our families and our country.
This woman brings in 130 kilos a day.
We have to leave. Uktam waits until we're in the car to clarify what we just saw.
They always repeat the same thing, that they're volunteers, to anyone who comes and see them. Some can't tell the truth openly because the others are listening and could denounce them.
We soon realise we have been denounced ourselves. A few kilometres further on, we're stopped by the police, despite our precautions. It quickly became clear this is no routine traffic check.
The criminal squad wants to question the journalist, and they want to question us separately. The problems are beginning.
The policeman gives us a pretext to justify the questioning.
It's an election period.
The World Bank is Uzbekistan's main backer and is putting pressure on authorities to end forced labour. So they want to seize our images of the cotton field. For the last stage of our journey, we take a brand new train and head for Andijan in the east of the country. In 2005, in this town of 400,000 people, anti-regime protests were brutally repressed. A massacre carried out in silence. At the time, the city was encircled by the army. The official version is that all those killed were Islamist militants. Hundreds were killed here on the main square. 11 years later, even using the hidden camera, witnesses to the massacre are still scared to speak.
There was a protest here. And then the army, they fired. They did these things. Children, women, old men and old women. Innocent people were killed. About 3,000 died.
Nothing in particular happened here. Everything is fine.
But what happened?
Nothing at all. They're rumours. Sometimes it's like that. People just say whatever comes into their head.
Nothing happened. Don't talk about it. It's not true. No one will believe it in any case.
It doesn't take long to understand why people are scared. We're posing as tourists, but still get the feeling we're being followed. Every time we turn around, men in the street duck and hide. This man, wearing a light blue coat, is particularly easy to spot. After a while, a woman comes up to question us. Clearly terrified, she asks us to leave. Islam Karimov's system of repression seems to have outlived him, and it appears the approaching Uzbek elections will be like those that came before, a mere pretense at democracy.
Well, we can speak to our correspondent behind that report now, Elena Volochine. Elena, clearly this was a very difficult report to make. Access for journalists is extremely limited in Uzbekistan, and a lot of your material was actually filmed secretly. Can you tell us more about how you managed to report from there?
I just had to pretend that I was a tourist because officially when you want to work in Uzbekistan as a journalist, you have to receive an accreditation from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But it's very rare that the Uzbek authorities deliver such an accreditation. So the only way if you want to work independently is to go there as a tourist. So I filmed just with a photo camera without any microphone. I had to pay very much attention not to get arrested because it was completely illegal. And Uzbek authorities, they really look at journalists not to come and to make such reports because obviously there's a lot of things to hide. So yes, it was extremely difficult to make this report.
Now, we saw in your report people working in the cotton fields under questionable conditions, and there's obviously been a lot of international concern about forced labour in Uzbekistan. Has international pressure had any effects at all?
In a sense, yes, it had, because for the last 2 years, Uzbekistan has stopped to use child labor in the cotton fields, as it was a practice since the Soviet Union. But it was due to satisfy a condition of the World Bank to renew its aid program to Uzbekistan. So this effort was made, but the human rights defender also agreed to say that when there is less child labor in the fields in Uzbekistan, there is more adult forced labor in the fields. For instance, teachers or medics or students, we saw it, they have to pay huge bribes not to be taken in the fields for 2 months each autumn. So still everything's done for the international community not to see that there is this forced labor. So that's why it was also very hard for me and for the human rights defender to monitor this practice.
Now, these are Uzbekistan's first elections since the death of Islam Karimov. Are there any signs of meaningful change at all?
Not really, because the new strong man of Uzbekistan, his name is Shavkat Mirziyoyev, and it's the ex-prime minister of Islam Karimov. He has been prime minister since 2003, and he was very close to the president. He was in charge of the agriculture sector, and so among other things of the cotton policies, and he's not really seen as a liberal at all by the analysts. It's opposite to it. He has taken some liberal or populist decisions when he became interim president, just to show he's willing to evolve in a democratic sense. But it was just before the election. But now analysts, they really agree to say that he's clearly not the one who will restore democracy and political repression towards opponents in Uzbekistan.
All right. Well, thank you very much indeed for bringing us that report. That's Elena Volochine there, our correspondent in Moscow. And that's it for this programme of Reporters. Do stay tuned to France 24.